Excited? Nervous?
Very nervous.
Oh, it would be great.
I
mean, this is a very supportive space. You'll see.
Just some bright lights.
Yeah, but it helps with the blurring of things,
Right.
especially for those of us that need it. Where's my photographer? Not back yet.
Everybody good? Yeah. Got this?
Yeah.
Great.
I'm so nervous.
Very, 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 very nervous.
Oh, just speak from the heart. I think, honestly, don't prepare for it because if I have been speaking from the heart.
I had a chance just to review the initials and
Yes.
I kind of figured if I just sat there and had a response to her, I would
Thank you.
get to it. And I
Never remember.
So if you were in the audience for that last panel, give them another. That was amazing. So good. And what a great transition moving from the researching the college student experience, the higher ed experience, to really looking at the day-to-day lives of college students and what the heck does that have to do with Comic-Con. So my name is Brian MacDonald. I'm the Executive Director of Communications and Org Development for UCLA Student Affairs. I've been so lucky and fortunate to have been a part of the GeekEd panels for the last decade or so. And if you are just joining for your first GeekEd panel of the day, this is truly an exploration of the ways in which the geek identity and fandom and pop culture intersects with the college student experience. And we are so fortunate to have a panel of student affairs educators and college students on this panel. And so with all respect to our educators, Christine and JonJon, we have 3 students here, Jason, Zach, and Julie, who I want everyone to absolutely erupt for, because they are probably like freaking out right now. Just kidding, they're not freaking out, they're composed, but they've all been navigating their own journeys even over the last 24 hours. Some of them recently graduated, some of them just flew halfway across the planet to be here, and others just got a flat tire. We've actually had our second flat tire in 2 years of panels, so I don't know what's going on. We're going to have a AAA sponsor our panels here. But as we get going, you'll hear from our panelists in just a second, but I think it's always important to really contextualize these panels and these conversations. If you've been sticking around for the previous panels, a lot has been going on in higher education with these big headline-grabbing engagements for the past few years. It hasn't just been, as Koya said, like our sacred timeline has been disrupted. You cannot track how many things that would have just totally taken all of our attention and our energy and our efforts, and we get 10 of those every day. But underneath all the headlines and underneath all of the massive disruptions on college campuses, we still have students every day trying to figure out through the house of mirrors of the university experience, what should I be doing here? How should I spend my time? Will my roommate like me? Am I going to get a job when I graduate? Am I, maybe I'm like May and Osha and I'm leaving a family behind who was or wasn't supportive of my decision. So there's so much happening in the day-to-day lives of all of our students, even with all of the big headlines that are going on. I want to read something that I thought was important to read today. And so here's how I'll start. One of the basic purposes of higher education is the preservation, transmission, and enrichment of all the important elements of culture, the product of scholarship, research, creative imagination, and the human experience. It is the task of colleges and universities to so vitalize this and other educational purposes to assist the student in developing the limits of potentialities and making their contributions to the betterment of society. It was actually written in 1937. And almost 100 years later, that was from the student personnel point of view, is still very relevant. And I feel like the parallels between higher education and the college student identity and that of those of us at Comic-Con, there's a lot of parallels that we don't always understand. I even think the experience of being here, right? We had a couple wonky years coming out of the pandemic, then we had a strike, and now we're fully back. Don't folks feel like Comic-Con's really back this year? Like, aren't you a little more tired, a little more stimulated, a little more what just happened? And I think we feel that way at universities as well, of the year that we just had. And so I am going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. I'm going to start all the way at the end with my good friend JonJon. Why don't you say who you are, what you do, and what's been the coolest thing you've seen at Comic-Con so far?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is JonJon Junpradub. I'm currently the Director of Residential Life at the University of the Pacific. And I just had my awesome moment walking over here as I was trying to get to the panel. As I was running down the street, I had a mom that just kind of ran up to me and just kind of tugged me along and said, wait, sorry, are you a Ghostbuster? I said, I think so. And immediately she said, can you please just tell my son ghosts aren't real? Because he's been having nightmares for the past 2 to 3 weeks. And I said, okay, 1 second. And I walked up to this little guy and I was like, hey, my name is John, DJ today. And hey, bud, listen, who's your favorite superhero? Captain America. Awesome, mine too, right? Whenever you're scared, you think about what Captain America would do. Because trust me, as a Ghostbuster, I always get scared too. But I always think of Captain America and what would he do in these situations? And immediately he just had a little smile, and I said, I gotta go, I'm late for a panel. But that was my moment here at San Diego Comic-Con. Amazing.
Wow, I was gonna say the Jaws Lego set, but then JonJon comes out with like a life-changing moment, so that's awesome. Thanks, buddy, that's amazing. Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm a rising senior at UCLA. I'm currently on the design team for Student Affairs Media Team, so I work with Brian. I would say my favorite thing have been like so far like the people, like a lot of passionate people, like all dressed up, and I think like the costumes and props are like very, very cool and like detailed, and I would like to make something like that one day.
In addition to media team, what's your position with Enigma also? Can you share what that is?
So I'm the creative director for UCLA Enigma. It's a sci-fi fantasy board game club, and I make all like the promotional and advertising stuff for the club.
Hi there. Oh, wait, is this on? Hello? Okay. Hi, I'm Zach. I actually just graduated from UCLA, and while I was there, I did a lot of research with teenagers surrounding like media trends and how they're feeling about what's been going on in the media, just about what's being made and if they feel like it's accurate to their experience and being a teen and everything else. I have enjoyed going to panels. I tried getting into Hall H yesterday, which didn't work. It was like a 4-hour experience, but it was kind of fun. I was just like picnicking in the grass, so that was fun.
Hi, I'm Jason Hernandez. I'm a multimedia artist, filmmaker, animator, just kind of visual storytelling, world building, just like passionate fanatic and artist, yeah. I'm a student in the Design Media Arts program. It's a very small program at UCLA that focuses on kind of interdisciplinary like research and exploration of different media tools for creation, whether it's like CGI, VFX, coding, creative coding, and web development, illustration, graphic design. I like love all of it. So for me, the big standout was definitely Artist Alley. I basically will talk up anyone that I can talk up, ask them about what their technique is, what method they're using. I'll ask them what software they're drawing with, what they're printing with, and it's just really fun. I feel like everyone's been so receptive, and it just feels fun to be in a really creative, artistic, space.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Christine Katipon. My pronouns are she, they, sha, and I am a licensed clinical psychologist working at Stanford University's Counseling and Psychological Services, and I'm also the president of the Asian American Psychological Association. It's been a great con, and I think the highlight was the What We Do in the Shadows Hall H panel for me, and the second was getting this awesome X-Men 97 shirt. I have to stand up and show. Spoiler alerts, but... And so I don't want to say who they are because that would spoil things, but watch X-Men 97.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. And we'll jump in here, and we're going to start with our students. And it's a common experience for when students are thinking about the college experience. How am I going to stay well? How will I stay connected? How will I find a career? And a lot of the times there can be seen as a choice of doing all those things well, but leaving certain things behind. And it's a common experience for a lot of the students who we do work with in GeekEd to come around and say, wow, the answer was here all along. And in GeekEd, we care deeply about trying to encourage students to actually hang on to your nerdy passions as much as you can through the student experience. But that can be a challenge when there's a lot of comics to read, a lot of shows to watch, a lot of fandoms to belong to. And so I want to go back for our students to the beginning of your college student journey. And I want to ask each of you to share, thinking back to when you entered the university, all of your hopes and dreams for school, your geek identities, what's something that's in your geek utility belt that helped you transition successfully into college life?
I would say definitely gaming. I really like play Minecraft and Roblox and Heyday. And I think that's how I met like a lot of my friends. While joining like Enigma, we bonded over like a lot of gamings, and we'd have like gaming sessions and play Roblox until like 3 a.m. And so it was like really fun. Like forget studying for tests. It was just like gaming like 24/7. So yeah.
And what was that like at the very beginning, like that first meeting you walked into? How did you learn about it? What was the initial connections like?
I would say I'm very personally like very introverted, so for me it was like very awkward. But I think over time, like the more you come to meetings and like the more you hang out, it was like really fun because you like bond over like special moments and just like hang out until like very night. And, yeah.
I would definitely say watching things. Like I think it's all about separating yourself a little bit from the overwhelming experience that can be starting out at a huge university. And also with my other coworkers at my internship, we would spend so long talking about games we were playing or movies we were watching or shows we were watching. And I think it's just nice to have something else to talk with these people besides academia, because you know it can kind of be like the last thing you want to think about at times. So yeah.
Honestly, what I was gonna say was basically exactly the same thing. It's that general like media literacy and being able to communicate that with people. And again, just completely nerd out. I was just remembering a moment with Brian when I first started student affairs. Actually, my first 2 weeks at UCLA. It was 2 weeks before the quarter began. As a transfer, it was kind of a really hectic experience, just being thrust into this whole basically like city that is UCLA. And I saw his Yoda tattoo. And that kind of segued into this whole conversation about like John Carpenter 80s horror movies. And these are movies that I've basically enjoyed, grew up in my entire life with, never had anyone to talk to about because I don't know anyone else that's into that. So as soon as you find someone that you share even any niche interest with, it just feels so much like better. I had this media theory class, really dense topic, but the first day the instructor mentioned that he has an interest in like gaming peripherals. So we're talking about the Nintendo Virtual Boy for 45 minutes after class, and the Matrix and Blade Runner. So it's moments like that, kind of just having just something that you feel passionate, if someone else feels passionate about. It's just, I don't know, it's energizing. It's really energizing.
So turning our attention to Christine and JonJon, both of you have been very successfully helping and supporting students as student affairs educators for a long time in your respective roles. So can you talk about how your nerdy passions show up in supporting students, and maybe if you have a story or two of how that's shown up in your work recently, feel free to jump in. Very accommodating panel up here, everyone.
Okay. So I work at Counseling and Psych Services at Stanford, and as a therapist, psychologist, we don't really do a whole lot of self-disclosure, but I found that making those connections with college students, especially QD BIPOC college students, which are the majority of whom I tend to attract, there's already a large stigma, with the queer community because of the way homosexuality used to be in our DSM, and also for a lot of the Asian community because we don't talk about feelings. So while I can't do a whole lot of self-disclosure about personal stories, I certainly can in little instances. So in my office, which is very like calm and everything, but then you also see a rock with googly eyes from everything, everywhere, all at once. Or you see a little picture of Abby from Turning Red, just like because she's who I like to channel when I want to feel feisty. And my Comic-Con name sign from previous cons. And so people will be like, what? Or, oh, and that I feel like I can speak to, because there's such a power differential and discomfort, I think, in coming to therapy as it is. And so having that shared identity of geekdom, nerdiness, what have you, just really pushes a lot of those barriers away. And so there are examples of, like, one of my students, after they got their aha moment, they're like, oh my gosh, you are like Harry Potter. And I'm like, Dobby, and you just gave me a sock. And I'm like it was everything I could not to cry. Or when, one of my students is wanting to come out and has like all of these like cognitive, distortions, like negative thoughts in their head. And so I'm like, well, have you watched Steven Universe? Of course we have. And I'm like, well, that song that Stevani sings, here comes a thought. And then I sing, and they're like, my therapist just sang Stevani to me. And I was like, that's actually a really good song for managing negative thoughts in your head. I want you to watch that video. And those are the kinds of homework that I will assign, and people really respond to it and connect with it in a way that I don't think the typical Western psychology approaches focus on. So I'm really glad to say that my geek pop culture knowledge, which was inflicted upon me by someone who is also in Emily's Star Wars nerd marathon, is my partner here, like not looking at me right now. It's lovely to be modeled that and to be able to benefit from that wonderful knowledge. So those are some of the ways I like to connect.
Thank you.
I've always had this saying stuck in my head from a colleague at UCLA by the name of Matt in our department at Residential Life. You don't know what you don't know until you do. And that has stuck with me for over 7 years. And because of those words, I've always thought about options and opportunities for students and residents to get involved in. For me, the director of residential life can sometimes be a position where folks think, oh man, I'm gonna go see the director because I'm in trouble, or man, I'm having roommate issues and now I gotta talk to this person about it, and it's a moment where folks aren't really looking forward to it. But my goal is when they're coming in, it's not just a learning moment for them, but for me. So I'll actually ask them so many questions about what they love, what they like, what they do, because there's things I'm also curious about that I have no clue exist or revolve around my world. So it's a really wonderful moment to see a student who comes in and goes, this wasn't that bad, and if anything, I appreciate it. And I look at them and I go, well, I appreciate you, because I never knew that, there was so many bones in the human body because you're a biology major and I was an anthropology major. So those opportunities are great. And the second one is friends. I have two wonderful buddies here, Jason Wang from UCLA, as well as Peter Lee from UC Berkeley, who I met through college, but through an organization called Circle K. And sometimes our students are finding it hard to make friends. But then the beautiful part is, hey, I'm able to come to Comic-Con because of wonderful people that I've met through college. How many friends do you have that are outside of this circle here? How many friends have you made at other universities or other organizations? Have you thought about joining clubs yet? And many times they start thinking, well, what kind of clubs are out there? Well, here's a whole laundry list, bud. Let's go. Let's talk about these options, right? And it's giving them opportunity to grow and be a part of something that they've never known about, something they may have not thought about, but we as educators are here to give them that opportunity to think and be involved in. So those are the magical moments of the work we do.
So I want to go back to our students, and I would invite our student affairs educators to jump in as well. But we talked about how you used your utility belt to navigate transitioning in. I'd like to now look at the other side and look at maybe your vulnerabilities. If you had a kryptonite as a college student, is there an experience that you can share where you needed to overcome a really significant challenge? How did your geek identities play into overcoming that challenge? Was there a character you drew inspiration from? Was there a sense of community that you were able to find? So if you could share maybe what the issue was that you were having and how you navigated, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
I think the hardest part of college was like letting go of my family, because I think like before college it was like 2 years of like quarantine, so I became like very attached to my family. And once I entered like college, I would like cry every single day for like months because I missed home, and I didn't really like join any clubs until spring quarter, because winter quarter I went home because it was like virtual options. Like, yes, time to go home. But then as soon as I got back, I was like, I need to like, I don't know, like have like a community. So I searched up like nerdy clubs on UCLA, and that's when I found like Enigma, and that's when I started showing up to like their meetings. And the first meeting was Zombie Tag, and so then it was like really fun meeting like new people. And then I think that's how like I found my sense of like, or I found a community at UCLA, and I looked forward to like going to campus and like making friends instead of like going home all the time.
So it was gaming, because you mentioned a really important part of this conversation was the pandemic. And so for our students, either a critical part of high school or early college was spent impacted. So during the pandemic, was gaming and like nerd identity, how did that play into your pandemic experience?
Since it was like online, me and my friends would play Roblox and Minecraft and like very late, just because we had like the opportunity to. Because I think during like before pandemic, we would like go to clubs like on high school, like in high school, so like in person. But then when we transitioned to online, it was more of like online gaming. So yeah.
I would definitely say, coming from a more like conservative town in Arizona, that entering UCLA definitely felt like just a like culture shock almost. Coming from a place where like people weren't that outgoing about their nerdy identities or like even outgoing about being queer, entering that space was kind of like almost overwhelming about the social opportunities and just how to take the best advantage of it. And I found through subtly, like I decorated my laptop in a bunch of nerdy stickers, X-Men stickers, Pokemon stickers, things like that, and even like albums I liked. And I found that doing small things like that and also noticing when other people are doing that, it's a great way to like open up conversation and put yourself out there. And you'll find that when you go to a university, you're so, I guess, conditioned to like the same people that you've known growing up since elementary school or whatever, that you go through all of the grades with, that when you're in this new environment, there are people like you who are also outcasts in their town, and you can really like come together and develop a great little community. And I think that also just speaks to the power of this media and nerd fandoms and how much community it can bring. Even here at Comic-Con, it's been amazing.
Is there an X-Men character or storyline in specific that really like speaks to you?
So my favorite character is Rogue, and I feel like that was definitely, you know, her metaphor of not being able to get too close to people without hurting them was something that I felt was very true to my experience being closeted in high school, where there was always this risk of getting too close to somebody and, you know, them having a certain viewpoint that might, you know, not approve of who I am. So yeah, Rogue has always kind of been my girl.
Jason.
Yeah, so it's funny, the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned a kryptonite is actually, I guess I like to call it my spider sense. You know, not the utility belt sense of that, but it's the spider sense that wakes you up, you know, 3 hours before your panel in the morning and, you know, doesn't let you go back to sleep. The spider sense that makes it difficult to get breakfast down and coffee, and the spider sense that gives you total panic when your tire pressure light comes on when you're exiting the 5 into Old Town. The spider sense that's like tingling right now, which is just generalized anxiety disorder, and basically just like my life kind of up into this point. So, you know, I think what I was really kind of getting at is that anxiety that kind of like makes things difficult at the same time is also what has allowed me to open up lots of others and really, really lean into my support system. And I guess especially with that nerd identity, just being comfortable with who I am, comfortable with my, you know, my hyper-focused interests, comfortable in the things that I like to talk about, has really made me feel a lot more welcome on the university. I guess just even going back to like family, I don't come from a nerdy family at all. I'm the only person of nerdy interests. So every May 4th, my mom greets me with a Vulcan salute. And we joke about it every time. I think I remind her that it's, you know, different franchise. I mean, I'm not a Trekkie, she's not a Trekkie, but yeah, could be, maybe in the future. But yeah, I have to remind her every single time, but it's just like, she's still supportive of that. They, you know, always treated me to basically, I don't know, all the Spider-Man merchandise I ever wanted growing up. So it kind of brings me back now to like more recent times where I just met my my girlfriend on our first date. She saw me drawn to this Spider-Man pin in a bookshop, and just like basically her seeing that and kind of recognizing that I like was drawn to it and supportive of that and letting me nerd out about my interests there, honestly, was just, you know, meant the world to me. And you know, I feel like I've been feeling that more and more the more I get involved with student organizations, and you know, being able to talk about movies, being able to talk about books I've read, being able to talk about projects I want to, you know, embark on. It's just been, you know, made me so much more comfortable in my own like skin and my own body. Yeah.
I will say that anxiety and social anxiety and just overall discomfort with social interactions has been really prevalent as a result of the pandemic. And so introverts who might have liked, you know, doing online gaming, and it's like that's all you had to do and you didn't have to go to class. This sense of having to go back onto campus has really created a lot of anxiety and just overall social difficulties. And so what I've really enjoyed, honestly, are when such students come into my office and I get to say, okay, what are you into? Kind of like what JonJon was saying. But then we actually practice how to have conversation. Like, you know, and because they're like, well, I'm into this. I'm like, perfect. I know that character. I know that series. And so I'll just practice and model to them. Okay, let's have a practice conversation. And it's so exciting when, you know, I didn't just say I know them. I'm like, I know them. And so I'm like, oh yeah, but when da-da-da-da. And like to see them like, wow, somebody's actually interested in what I have to say and is interested in something that I like. And maybe that could be something I experience out there. It's so precious, especially when we really start getting into the conversation for real. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that, and blah, blah, blah. So I would say that the pandemic has significantly impacted several, you know, iterations of students and graduate students. And so there is support out there. And sometimes you might be lucky enough to find a nerdy therapist to practice your social skills on.
John, anything you wanted to add on this one?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm just like absorbing it still, so, yeah, no.
So I would turn this question to everyone, for our students and our educators. So let's move sort of beyond for our students. You are all transitioned in, but you all found positions of leadership on campus and have been in positions to help others. And so is there a time where, for again, anyone on our panel can share a story where you were in a position to help someone else find community? And so with the backdrop of your nerdy passions and your passion for fandom and your heroes, where is there a time where you've helped someone else be successful throughout the college experience?
So folks, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've been waiting my whole life to answer this question. And to be able to do this here at Comic-Con is a complete honor, simply because of our moderator today. Brian MacDonald allowed me the chance to be a part of something special at UCLA and to help create something known as Geek Week, along with some wonderful people like Danny over here and our doctor over here as well, our faculty and our staff. And being able to be a part of that piece and to create those opportunities and see residents and students walk by in shock and awe when they see the Jurassic Park Jeep, or when they see a Ghostbuster walk by, or a stormtrooper who's saying words like, hey, hold up, you know, it's surreal. And to see Comic-Con at UCLA, it's just an amazing experience. So I just want to say thank you, Brian, for allowing me the opportunity and to support our staff and our students in giving us that chance, because I've been waiting my whole life to actually answer this question. So thank you.
You're the best, JonJon. But I think it's also, you know, it's a good place to also to pause, and I think you hear from many of the folks who've been on these panels, especially in administrative positions, who have been so tied up in crisis management for the past several years, that there's this sort of, you know, the cycle, the whole concept behind what we do in student affairs is build community, help folks feel more connected and less alone, and good things happen. And so the focus on constant crisis, I think, has taken us off mission a little bit, and there's no one keeping that flywheel turning. So I think that's a great reminder, JonJon, of how we continue to make sure we're investing in helping people find community. Thank you. Anyone else want to share a story how you help someone else?
I think as creative director of like Enigma, I was able to make a lot of like promotional like stuff. So like I think I made like a zombie tag movie trailer. I was able to make like promotional flyers and post them on Instagram and like Discord and everywhere, and then promote them during our like club fair, EAF. And I think that like all of like my hard work, I guess, made a lot of people like come and join Enigma, because in the beginning we would usually get like 100 people during our like events, and then like I feel like after our Instagram page like blew up, we got like 200 people for our first like zombie tag or next zombie tag. So I think that's like a way that I helped find or help people find Enigma or a community here at UCLA.
I could say that at my internship, we did work with teenagers from around the country and actually help them learn the basics of research, how to conduct research, and then also help them do their own research. So I think a big moment for me was helping these teenagers who wanted to explore different avenues of media, whether it be queer representation or people of color or whatever it may be, helping them see these research projects to fruition and actually get them published in a report that kind of had a great reception. A lot of entertainment like outlets wrote about it, and also there were some major changes to TV season plot lines and things like that that reflected the changes the teens wanted to see. And so I think helping these teenagers who are all interested in the same things and also interested in research, actually making some, minor change in the world around them based on their research and their own academic and creative vision was something that was really amazing.
So first thing that comes to mind for me, in response to Brian's question, is traditionally like art making feels like a very socially like isolated process. I tend to practice a lot solo, work a lot on my own, and kind of finish projects entirely without anyone seeing the step-by-step process leading up to that. So kind of going into UCLA, joining these organizations, and finally getting into one of my big passions, which is filmmaking, which is a very collaborative process, kind of brought me into leading teams of people and being able to like share my own knowledge and have other people share their knowledge with me. And a lot of that is very nerdy and media defined, basically saying like, hey, how would I plan this shot? Oh, I'd plan this shot like this shot from The Social Network, or from I don't know, The Evil Dead. We want this big camera movement. So just like being able to share our own experiences and communicate that in a way that's like very unique to our own personalities, and also kind of treat that as like a teacher, mentor, teacher alternating moment felt really important to me.
I think a big focus in my therapeutic work with students is self-care and social interactions. And so I take it upon myself to know about all of the nerd clubs and activities and events. So I'm signed up for all the newsletters. And so if people are like, I can't find my people, I'm like, wait, hold up. And then I'm like, well, there's this going on, and since you mentioned this, and it's not something that you would typically think of, because most therapists are sending people to the learning center or to, accommodations or things like that. I'm like, no, the anime club meets on Thursdays at 7, and you would totally love it there. I know several people there. I can't say who, cannot confirm or deny, but there are some great people there. So I just, it helps that that is my interest as well, because I'm interested in those things. Even if I'm not going to participate in them, I really want people to find their community through that knowledge.
So this is a surprise question, but it's just striking how busy all of you are. You all have so much going on. I would like to know how, logistically, you find time to fit your nerdy stuff into your lives. And so what are you watching right now? What are you reading right now? What are you up to right now? What's at the top of your list that you can't miss?
Well, typically at for instance, San Diego Comic-Con, me and my friends will go ham, and we'll just start spending money on all these exclusives. This is the first year my partner, when I come home, she literally goes, "Where's your bags?" And I go, "Oh, no bags. All the money's in the pocket," because we are saving money right now. We have 4 cars at our house that we're creating and turning into movie vehicles. So we are working on getting, for instance, our Camaro to become Bumblebee. We have a Sprinter van that will become a Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous van. And we're drawing up plans. We're working with artists for decals and suppliers. So that's what I do, and that motivation just keeps me going. Coming to work is great, So yes.
Yeah, side hustles have been a thing at Comic-Con for, decades, so it's not new.
During the school year, every Friday, we have unofficial board game nights. So from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., we just have board games every week, and it's really fun. And then I also have D&D sessions. We try to make time, but it's like hard, especially because it's like the quarter system, so it's hard to have like, or make time to play, but anytime we can, we just meet up and have our D&D session.
Julie, if you ever are playing Twilight Imperium 4, please let me know. I will call it work hours. That's my wife. There's a really important meeting at UCLA. I can't miss it because that's the best game ever made.
We have a copy. We have copies.
I would say, like, make sure you're getting your sleep. I would definitely save my work for the night time. Like, get home from school, drive home from campus or whatever, go to your dorm. For me, it's like I'm gonna nerd out first and maybe read or play a video game and then get to my work. That might not work for you. I would say just like make spaces, and also, yeah, if you're on a quarter system, good luck. It gets rough. And also, reading leisure time is like also kind of impossible. So since I've graduated, I've finished like 5 books and it's been great. I'm reading Lord of the Rings right now. Yeah.
That's a great reminder to read. I feel like every time I like look at my bookshelf, I get a little bit sad. I have so many books that are basically on the list, and I gotta get through them one at a time. So I'm gonna get back to that very soon. But yeah, it's fine. I guess I'm lucky in that basically my work is full nerd culture basically all the time. But it's funny that when you're kind of being pulled like left and right, it's kind of hard to like lock in on one particular topic you're trying to get further into. Like, you know, it's actually funny. I guess think of like one thing I'm trying to do right now. I haven't had no time. Is Cyberpunk 2077. It's a really dense RPG, action RPG, and from what I hear, it's like a 200+ hour game if you really, really get into it. And I just can't really get into it yet. I know I don't have the time, but we'll get there. We want to be fully immersed. We want to be fully immersed. So
I just picked up like 4 or 5 more things to watch, just attending the panels. I'm like, oh, you know, I went to the Amazon Prime panel. I'm like, I didn't know about these shows. I mean, I knew about Invincible. It's a little gory for me, but Has Been Hotel, I think I'm going to have to check that out. Volume 3 of the Children of Orisha series is amazing if you have not picked it up, and it's a trilogy, and they're casting for the movie now. So Tomi Adeyemi, incredible series, so good. And of course, I just finished The Acolyte. I've loved how the Star Wars universe has represented Filipinos, with Manny Jacinto and Diana Inosanto, and, you know, just like, you know, representation matters in therapy as well as in the Star Wars universe. And so I think any time we can see our Filipino martial arts represented or characters represented, I'm all about highlighting that, especially for my students with that shared identity.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the video of Manny Jacinto training and the stunt work for that, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So good. So now for our students, and obviously Christine and JonJon, please jump in. You know, obviously the goal of a great college student experience is for you to leave the university and go have a fulfilling career where hopefully your university experience has helped you more getting there than hurt you, right? And so also wrapped around this idea of geek identity. So how has, you know, now that all of you are sort of through the transition phase, some of you graduated and looking ahead, where have your nerdy passions landed in terms of your career plans? What is it that you really, truly hope to be doing after graduation in your career? And how have your nerdy passions helped you navigate career development? And then I would also pitch that to JonJon and Christine as well. How have you helped students sort of navigate, you know, with that nerdy compass to find fulfilling work after graduation?
I guess I always had a passion for like design. So when I entered UCLA, I joined like design-a-thons, and I wanted to work in like creating like mobile apps or like website development. And I think after joining like Enigma and getting more into gaming, I realized I wanted to work in a gaming company, because like they allow you to be so like creative with your work, and I feel like I want that like space where I can just like make things like aesthetic and like look cool, and not just be so like restrained into like that like I don't know how to say, like corporate style. So yeah.
I have a love for developmental psych. I also love working with kids and teenagers as well, but mostly kids, because, you know, but I have found that having such a great or deep appreciation for like children's minds and how moldable they are, and how when you do good for them, really great things can happen. I've appreciated Sesame Street for my whole life, and I still do. And I think the principle of Sesame Street, delivering education to children who might not have great access to it through television and media, is something really amazing. And even working with kids now, I work in the Culver City School District, and even working with them and being able to talk to them about things like Pokemon or Power Rangers, and they're like, how do you know about Pokemon? And I'm like, it's older than me, but like, whatever. Yeah. I think I would love to work in children's media and keep pursuing that goal of Sesame Street.
Just went to Sesame Street Place with our kids 2 days ago.
Oh my
Highly recommend. Great.
I've heard
water
great things.
slides too, everyone.
Yeah, and for me, and definitely in that, creative job market, it's fully based on I guess personal creative fulfillment, and I guess kind of navigating what I want to do in that space has been really time consuming, but also really exploratory. So I guess, being able to kind of decide, and I mean, hopefully having the privilege to pick and choose between different routes to go in the near future after graduation will be really important to me. I kind of like the idea of exploring the freelance market and being able just to do a lot and meet a lot of people. And for me right now, it's really helpful to be a student and have just complete freedom in that, and to be part of clubs that basically allow me to make a science fiction photo shoot, to do a drawing of Joe Bruin or UCLA Bruin mascot, in fun poses. Basically just anything that I am satisfied doing. I feel like it's just another step along, basically having a body of work that I'm ready to share with others, and hopefully can land me an interview, hopefully lands a fun conversation at an interview. Kind of reminds me of my interview with Student Affairs. It was with our other boss, Ricky. It was all about cinematography and filmmaking and just nerding out about movies. And I was like, man, I really bombed this interview. I've been talking for 5 minutes about, some of my favorite shots and, again, some random 80s movie. At the end, they were basically telling me that's exactly what they're looking to hear. And I'm just hoping to have a little bit more of that experience in the near future.
This is it. Getting to panel at Comic-Con. I want to be invited every year, so I'm putting it out there in the universe. I mean, I always used pop culture in my therapy work, but I didn't know that it could lead to something like this. And then being able to talk about it and have people resonate with it and be able to ask for, mental health support in a way that feels authentic for them. I think it's such a great gift. I mean, I've been honored to do a lot of things with this career, but the one that I am absolutely the most excited about is to be a Comic-Con panelist and come here. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
I think the most important part about being in this work is that students, when they're leaving the institution, there's not sometimes a lot of reassurance that they're going to be able to find a career or a job. And I think the beautiful part is being able to tell them, it's okay. Take your time, right? Because the beautiful thing is when you're doing something you do love, you authentically love, it's not work anymore. It's fun. And so some things I've even been able to be blessed to do is, on the side, for instance, I actually have booths at Comic-Cons. I have my own side business that I sell collectibles. I've been collecting since I was 14, sealed products. I only sell sealed products. And it's great to be able to have some of my students come along and just sell with me. And I kind of coach them along and say, it's not a typical 9 to 5, and that's okay. This is just a transition. But it's one that I love doing on weekends. It makes me enough money to just kind of get settled in and to find my next step, right? And so being able to do things like that and coach students and residents along on that piece has been an absolute pleasure. One student, for instance, I know, she has a passion for writing. She's never thought she could write a book or a novel. And I told her, have you looked at small printing companies? Small printing companies are up and coming, not the Penguins, not the, the big companies, Boom Studios, but the smaller ones. Have you ever reached out to them and pitched your idea? Sure enough, a year or two later, I see her in Portland at Rose City Comic-Con. And I'm like, whoa, you've got your own little booth right here. Oh, you published a book about, cute little onions and so forth. And it's really awesome to see that she's probably now like nominated one of the best-selling book authors in Portland, right? And she's just grown from that piece. But being able to talk to students and see them just do things like that, it's absolutely amazing. So just being able to tell them it's going to be okay, do what you love, because it will guide you to where you gotta be and where everything in the universe wants you to be.
So, closing question. What advice would each of you give to a student who's either applying to college or just starting this upcoming fall, who has deeply held passions within geekdom that they don't want to let go of?
Being a Ghostbuster is not just a cosplay for me. I have a deep love of parapsychology and the paranormal. I'm actually a paranormal investigator. And I'll say this, even as a young age, I was made fun of a lot trying to create a proton pack. My first proton pack I've ever made was when I was at UCLA. And when I was dating my partner, who I met, the first few dates, she showed me a video of her when she was 4 years old, hunting for ghosts at home while her big brother was recording a video. And that moment, I knew she was the one.
You could show her. You could show her the proton pack on like date 5.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. She was wearing it all around the date. So, but the goal is hang on to what you love, even if there's adversity. Right? Without struggle, there's no progress. And ultimately, even if people do not see what you see or don't support you exactly, hold on to what you love, because whatever you love is going to fuel you and get you what you want, which is happiness. So hang in there, even if you find that adversity.
My advice would be to join clubs. I think it's an easy way to find your community. And if your campus doesn't have like a nerd club, I would say start one, because there's like a lot of people who have the same passion as you do. And I think that'd be a really like easy way to find your community.
I would definitely say just stay authentic, be into what you're into, like tell people about it if you want to tell people, because I can pretty much guarantee you will find somebody else who likes that, and it's a great way to make friends. And like, don't feel like you need to change your nerdiness. Like, there are more people out there who will appreciate that you're an adult who's into like Pokemon, for example, than you would like imagine. And it's just a great way to meet people and have fun times.
I think it's funny. I was just actually thinking about like high school and kind of how I embraced my nerdiness since then going into college, because it really was embracing it, and I guess being more, talkative about it in public, and also like it's not just about putting yourself out there and talking about your interests, but also like asking people what their interests are too. I feel like that's a great way to start a conversation. And yeah, I guess it's funny for me. It really worked out. I wrote a personal insight question basically about my nerdiness. I wrote about like receiving this book from my uncle when I was like 5 years old. Was How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. It was John Buscema and Stan Lee co-written, and I remember just like completely changed my life, like put me on the life path I am today, and I talked about it, and I guess they must have liked it because I'm here at UCLA now. So yeah, there you go.
I think one of the really wonderful things I love about providing therapy to college students is the aspect of identity development. And it's the first time most students have a place to really explore who they are, embrace who they are, or, reject some of the things that are no longer working for them. And so I think embracing one's nerdiness and finding other people who embrace that as well is so important. So like you were all saying, like put it out there, because the people who don't get you will go away. Natural selection. And the people who do get you are going to be attracted to you, and that's where you're going to find your people, your community. And you want to be surrounded by people who are going to accept and embrace your authentic self, because then that allows you to do it too. When I was growing up in the 90s in college, it was still such a stigma to be a nerd, and so I haven't really, embraced it until now, but I use that experience to encourage college students now, like, don't wait however many years to embrace that identity, because I married a nerd and I'm surrounded by nerds now, and I wouldn't be here at Comic-Con without a nerd. And so there's nothing wrong with it, and as long as you can really embrace that authentic identity, you're gonna go far.
So if you have questions for our panelists, they'll be hanging out after. We're going to clear out and make room for our final GeekEd panel of the day. But please help me thank our panelists for doing a great job. And did our students do all right? Yeah? Good job.